Hi, it's Bob from HeCooksForMe.com. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I have a friend, Rolando, that drove in about 9 hours today from Oregon, and I'm going to make him cook for you.
We're going to do tacos, and these are not your mama's tacos, I'm here to tell you, because they're my mama's tacos. She taught me how to cook these, and by the way, she would not allow anybody in her kitchen. So I feel pretty honored that she actually taught me how to do these. And you will never experience any other tacos like these tacos.
And what's funny is, we actually know him as Rolando's Tacos. He knows them as Mama's Tacos. Who knows what Mama used to call them, right? So that Rolando's sharing with all of us. So normally I save the pairing talk until the end when we're actually going to have the food. But we're having a little bit today while we are making the tacos as well. So we have a favorite brewery right here in Boise called Boise Brewing. And we split a growler. This is their Broad Street Blonde, which is a lighter beer, and it will go great with the tacos tonight. If you do want to go a red wine with this, a Tempranillo would be amazing. A Rioja blend would be amazing with it. So we'll get into now the meat part of the tacos. We're going to use an 85% lean ground beef, and this is just 1 pound. Why do you go 85%?
You still want some fat content while you're cooking this because you want it to actually soak into the shell. But you got to be careful because if it is too much, the bottom of your shell is going to fall out, and it's not as pretty. It's kind of a drag. It's still good because you can still eat it, but it's all about presentation.
It becomes fork food instead of finger food.
There you go.
And to make the meat, all we're going to do is 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And when you cook this, you really pound it out so it's really fine pieces of ground meat. And we'll show that to you as Rolando's cooking.
Some more the spices we're going to cover, and then we'll show you how to really mix that in. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, go ahead and add our spices. We're going to have our 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And by the way, I use a garlic powder. You don't want to use fresh garlic or a clove of garlic because I'll guarantee it's going to be a completely different taste.
And cooked fresh garlic goes kind of bitter, where when you use the granulated like this, it seems to maintain the garlic flavor.
And see, I would not know that because I've never done that. But anyway, again, this is my mama's recipe, so I've never veered from it, and I guarantee if you don't follow these directions and do it this way, they're not going to taste the same. And I've had many people tell me that they thought they'd try this or that, and for whatever reason it didn't work out or taste the same. Well, there's a reason why we do everything that we do in this manner, and I'll explain it as we go along also. All right, this is our third and final. Again, you want to make sure you spread it all the way around. Okay. So now our next step, what we're going to do is constantly cut this up and grind it in. And the reason you're doing that is number one for texture, but the main reason is going to be that you want to make sure you're getting all your spices evenly spread out throughout every single bit of meat. You want to mix it around. You want to keep turning this over. The thing about the meat too, 2 things you want to keep in consideration. Number one, you don't want to overcook the meat. It's not going to have enough fat in it to soften the shells the way we would like them softened. And of course, if they're not overdone, they're going to be nice. The meat's going to be nice and tender also.
Another thing to remember is we're going to throw these in the oven. So the meat's still going to have a good 10 minutes at 350 in the oven to finish cooking if there's any even kind of pink left in it. So it'll cook through. Cool. So while Rolando's cooking the meat over there, I'm going to start cutting up the other ingredients that go into these. You use 4 to 6 romas depending on their size. These are kind of a medium size, so I'm going to use 5 romas for tonight. We do have a couple extras so we can cut more if we end up needing them, but I'm going to start with 5. To cut the tomatoes, you want to cut the top and the bottom off, and then you thin slice them pretty good. And you want these to end up in cubes. And so you cut them out into pieces like this, or slices like that. And then you can cut maybe half at a time and kind of do thirds. And then do thirds again. And it makes really nice cubes of tomato. And you need them kind of small like this to really sit on the tacos as we're putting them in and getting them ready to go in for baking. So Rolando just piped in as I was cutting these that the reason we use Romas versus a regular red tomato is they're just a heartier tomato and they don't have as much juice in them. You can see as I'm cutting these, this is a couple tomatoes worth of juice and it's hardly anything even on the board. So this isn't going to cause juice to soak into the tacos and take over the other flavors in the tortilla. To do the iceberg lettuce, I'm just going to cut it right down the middle. And we only want to use the really green part of the lettuce. And you want it thin sliced. So you just make thin slices of the lettuce, like this. Oh. And then what I do is I pull that whole center section out. That white part like that is more bitter. And you will really taste it in this recipe if you decide to use it. So you want to just avoid doing that white part. And then I cut it into strips that are about, 2.5, 3 inches long. So just like that. And then you're going to break those all up. And so that they end up being individual pieces. Because we're going to lay these over the top of the meat that goes into the tortillas or the taco shells. So traditionally for this recipe you use a true Colby cheese, and this is about 1.25 pounds. Traditionally we use 1 pound to make a dozen of the taco shells or a dozen of the tacos, which goes with 1 pound of meat. It goes with the tomatoes we've cut and it goes with the lettuce we've cut. I'm just going to grate this normally, and I'll let Rolando talk to you about why we use Colby.
So Colby, and believe me, my mom tried all kinds of different cheeses. What you're looking for is 2 things. Number 1, how easily it melts, because we're going to bake these, and they got to melt fairly quickly. Number 1, and the other thing, the taste. Colby, the taste of Colby with a taco is the absolute best taste. And don't get hung up. It's getting harder and harder to find Colby. This is called a Colby Longhorn. But the Longhorn is referring to the shape of it. So if you find Colby in a block and it only says Colby, it's the same thing. Again, Longhorn is referring to the shape. We actually had to go to the grocery store at the deli counter. And so they do slices of these for sandwiches or whatever in Colby, but they didn't carry it any other place in the grocery store. And I went to several to find the Colby. You can always find cheddar, medium cheddar, sharp cheddar, all that stuff. And we've done these with the cheddar, but the cheddar does not melt as well. It's a lot oilier. And it overpowers the flavors, and you want to be able to taste all the flavors in these tacos. If you notice, I just keep turning this over. You don't ever want to stop. From the time you put that meat in to the time you take it out, you're always going to be doing something with it. And that's to ensure that it's getting cooked thoroughly, but more importantly, those spices are getting soaked into everything, because there's not a big cooking time, so those spices have to get in there somehow, and we're just going to help that process along. So we've got an assembly line now going. So this is our ground beef that was cooked, our Roma tomatoes, that sliced up iceberg lettuce, and the grated Colby cheese. We're going to use Ortega taco shells. We do the 20% larger. Yeah, and I don't always get hung up on the brand per se. It's more important about the size, because again, this recipe is based on 1 pound of meat, 1 pound of cheese, and just like everything else, over time, your products are getting smaller, the price is going up. So what I look for is the weight. You want to get 5.8 ounces for 12. This says 20% larger tacos. Well, larger than what? Because in all honesty, these may be larger, but they're the same original size that I used 20 years ago. So anyway, keep that in consideration, the weight more than the brand. If you don't get the larger tacos, it's really hard to get them stuffed with everything. And you end up with too much stuff trying to go in. All right. So we'll go ahead and the first thing you want to do is the beef. Now here's the thing about every layer, and I use a tablespoon, right? And you're going to use 2 large heaping tablespoons. You want to spread, don't pack it really hard, but you want to spread it from one end to the other, and you'll see the method to the madness on that. We're just going to stack them in here, and then I'm going to keep going. And so he leaves a little room at the ends, and the reason for that little bit of room is we're going to cover this with cheese at the end, and you want the cheese to seal this entire thing. So you don't want any of your other items to go clear to the end. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the layers, every layer that goes on here. And it really does need to go in this order, and the reason it needs to go in order is because we are combining flavors, number one, and we're also creating a place where we can seal everything. So after I put the hamburger meat in, we're going to put the tomatoes. You want the tomatoes to be in contact with the meat because it's going to help soften things up. And then you're going to cover the meat with the tomatoes, and you're going to try and just get one layer worth of tomatoes. And of course, we'll show you that when we get to that point also.
This is just a 9x13 casserole dish, glass casserole dish. You can see how we're kind of lining them up in here. The last few will go out here on the sides, and you can kind of squish them together a little bit as we get to that point just to keep them all standing together. I just turned the oven on at 350 to preheat. So that's where we'll bake these, is actually at the 350, and we'll tell you how to tell when they're done. It's not really a time frame as much as how they look when they're in the oven.
It really smells amazing. I mean, I can literally smell each individual spice, and that's the goal. You want to be able to taste. That's the idea of these tacos, the blend of everything that's here. You will taste each individual item that's in this taco. Wow, look at this.
We're getting up just a little bit short, aren't we?
No.
You think you're gonna get 3 more out of that?
Oh, is it 3?
Yeah.
I thought it was only 2.
Well, 2 more after the one you're working on.
Right. So that tells me that I got a little heavy on some of the other, but that's not a big deal, folks. You know what? If you don't get 12, the beauty of this, you can just make more.
And this will make great tortilla chips to go with some salsa.
I would bake them first also. The idea of the tomatoes, again, is we're going to cover the beef. You only want to go 1 tomato cubed layer, right? You don't want to stack this stuff, because again, we still have lettuce to go and we have the cheese to go. So you want room for that stuff, and the tomato is flavoring that, believe me, you'll be able to taste it.
So you can kind of see how he's finished these off. You want pretty much all the beef covered that you can see. You don't want to be able to see a whole lot of beef down through the tomato layer.
And again, every bite that you take of this taco, the idea is to get a bite of every item in here. You know, you want to taste the tomato, you want to taste the lettuce, and of course you're going to taste the cheese.
So our next layer is going to be the lettuce that goes over the tomatoes. We were just discussing this though, and the way I cut it is actually a little bit thicker than what he would actually like to see. So let's talk about here, that hopefully you can see that, so that you can see kind of where I cut it.
So the length is good. It's okay, because we want to cover from one end to the other. And again, you know, this sounds like a really big deal, but I'm here to tell you the idea is to seal all these flavors together. And so I would like to have seen it maybe half of that width. These are going to work, no big deal, in all honesty. The thing about lettuce is when you cut it really thin, it's going to spread out when you put it into the taco. So again, just one thing you want to think about, not a big deal. We're going to use these, it's going to work out for us.
But really thin is the key.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're going to cover, oh yeah, see, yeah, we'll,
So I'll let him do a couple of these and we'll flip this so he can work on the ones on the side so you can actually see what it looks like after they're covered up. So you can see these 2 are finished here, and you can hardly see tomato through it. Again, it's a full layer that goes end to end on the tortilla shell or taco shell, and you can't see the layer that's underneath it.
So the last step we're doing is my favorite, because it's the cheese, and who doesn't love cheese? And if you've never experienced the Colby cheese, especially baked on a taco, this is going to be something. So here's the most crucial part of this whole process, because what we're doing is we're going to create the ability to seal all the flavors inside this taco shell, right? So we're going to literally cover so that you cannot see anything but cheese on top of the taco, and we're going to seal or cap off the ends. All right, so here we go. And the way, you know, you start in the middle, just work your way out. And a lot of times, all it takes is you're going to have to, you know, sometimes you'll have to shove them in. That's okay. Again, the whole idea is that we're going to seal. We're going to use the cheese to seal all the flavors in. and it has to touch the shell.
By sealing it, you leave all that tomato juice and all that beef juice and even some of the juice out of the lettuce inside of that. And so we're going to put it in the oven and bake it at 350. And as it bakes, all of that juice is now going to go into that tortilla shell, and it actually makes that tortilla shell kind of soft. Not like a soft tortilla or anything like that, but it does soften the shell, and it just gives it such a great flavor and a great mouthful as you're taking a bite. So let me flip this real quick while he's getting another handful so you can really see there that it is sealed clear down. It's on both sides as well as all the way over the top, and he'll do that with every single one of those taco shells. So this is our finished, well, our finished to go in the oven product. It's, Rolando was just saying he had somebody that he made these for that said, this isn't food, this is art. You've seen the whole process of how these all go together, and you're gonna be amazed when these come out and you see just the melted goodness that these are gonna be in about 8-10 minutes, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. So now they're gonna go in the oven at 350 degrees, and we'll just keep an eye on them with the oven light on, and you watch for them to melt out. How do you know exactly?
Well, what you're going to look for is, number one, look at all these bumps and if when you start melting them, you're going to see bubbles. You want to see it completely smooth. And you want, the key to this is you want them smooth, and that means they're completely melted together. They've sealed everything. But if you wait too long, they're going to fall, they're going to slide right off. So, and what I do is I literally stand in front of the oven with the light on, and when I see that there's completely smooth, no bumps, we get them out. Not a second later than that. Okay, so we've gotten these out of the oven, and as I was saying earlier, the exact moment you pull these out is when you have a very smooth finish. It's very glossy, and where you can see where it started to sink into the lettuce. That was the point of we're done. This one's overdone, but who knows why they did. Overall, they're beautiful. Like I said, the cheese fell into place. They're super smooth, sealed from all ends. We're ready to eat.
So now the real trick is how do you get these out? Because they are so cheesy that they've melted all together. And you just kind of use a knife, or you can use your spatula and just kind of go down in between these. But you don't want to lose any of this flavor, any of this cheese, all this good stuff. And so I'm going to kind of cut that one all the way around, put a spatula in here, and pull that out. And then to serve these, you just cut down one side of the cheese, and now you can fill that with whatever you want. You can see all the different layers in there, the meat, the tomato, the lettuce, the cheese. We're going to use Mrs. Renfro's mango habanero salsa tonight. Renee loves these with sour cream. You can put guacamole on them. A restaurant salsa is really good on this. You can even do paste. Whatever your flavor is for heat and for flavor is now what you put on there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and consider hitting that red subscribe button. It really helps if you can share my videos with friends and family that might be interested, or watch some of the other videos on my channel. I hope this dish, or one of my other featured dishes, finds its way into your kitchen soon.